and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Business of Property. I am your host, Cheryl Leong from Property Development Australia. At the Business of Property, we interview superstar guests in the property development space that share their expertise, their deals, their stories to help empower, build, and grow our community of property developers and investors. So, hello to Facebook Land, LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever you're watching the live session today. Feel free to hit the comment button, put your hellos in if you're here with us, or if you're watching the replay, not we pay, the replay, #replay. So our guest for tonight is Brenton Schaeche, who is an experienced investment advisor with a demonstrated history of capital raising and development with his company Lion Property Group, which currently have over 20 projects in progress, whether in construction or in different phases of the development life cycle. So Brenton began his career working in construction management before transitioning into capital raising. And the reason that we've brought him here today is to talk about this topic around managing risk. Like, development is risky business, right? And so how do we go around making sure that we highlight and are able to manage the specific risk well so that we end up having a successful and profitable development project? So without further ado, hello everyone. May I welcome Brenton to the Business of Property dance floor.
Hi Cheryl, hi everyone.
Hello. Welcome to the Business of Property, Brenton. And tell us a little bit about yourself, and we want to find out those that haven't met you, and they've probably seen you, leave comments or provide some sage advice, or sage sharing of your experience in the group, not so much advice. Share with us your property journey so far.
In terms of my career, Cheryl, or in terms of my own developments and what I do in property?
Yeah, well, your own experience to start with, and then we can talk about the business side of your career.
Yeah.
Growth.
Okay, cool. When I was 18, obviously, as you mentioned, studied construction management. At that time, I was working offshore on the oil rigs at the same time. I was also doing some scaffolding on the sky rises in the CBD. So I was always involved in construction. My dad worked offshore on the oil rigs as a crane driver. And I loved the construction side of it as well. And then I suppose shifting into your more developer side I got my real estate license. I did a bit of business broking. I was day trading as well. And then a junior grad position became available as an investment advisor for a corporate finance company. I actually had no experience in that space because it was more around the project management and construction side in property development. However, the ASX and the equities markets and the share market, they intrigued me. So I took a plunge into that space, and that's where I started, sitting in boardrooms with CEOs of big private companies looking to list on the Australian Stock Exchange and go public. And to do that, they needed a certain amount of liquidity in the company, and ASIC required them to have a certain amount of funds. And to go to that next level, they had to do some capital raising. So I kind of just fell into capital raising. And then after a few years there, Lion Property Group saw my previous experience, saw what I was doing now. And, I've been there at Lion Property Group for 5 years and never looked back since. It's awesome that I've been able to, I suppose, combine my experiences all together and be in a position I am in now to add value to situations that can help everyone.
Yeah, fantastic. And I know you do, as part of your role in Lion Property Group, because you are dealing with a lot of investors, and I'm sure this comes up very often, is that investors are a little bit nervous about putting funds into development projects. So risk management and being able to advise them, not advise, I would take the word away. There's no advice on this in this, by the way, and guide them through what it is that you guys are doing in terms of your projects, how you're managing the types of risks as well. Just at the gym, I'll watch this tonight on replay. Go hard. Enjoy. So as you're managing all these risks, and so you're on the capital raising part, and I'm sure that you get the same sorts of questions day in and day out from investors. What are the top 5 areas of risk that you see that developers need to really consider, particularly in the current market? So we've had quite a volatile market over the last 2 years. I don't know if anyone's noticed. And there's always going to be some element of, challenges that come up and things don't always go as they would plan. What are the top 5 areas that you feel are most critical for developers and projects?
I'll start first by saying, just in relation to the investor side of it, depending what level an investor comes in at depends on their risk and how they associate risk to a property development. Something that they might see very risky, to us, we don't really see it as a risk because we deal with it every day. In terms of the top 5 risk out there at the moment, they're always out there, but obviously some impacting more so than others. For example, interest rates. But I'll start with, in terms of top 5, I'd put at the top of that land value. I think as a developer, it's very important that you're conscious about the value of the land that you're about to develop. Yes, interest rates do impact that value, but can you get the highest and best use out of that land and add a significant amount of value to that land to make it all worth it? And you can purchase land or find a good deal in any market. It's just about, having the patience and targeting the right bit of land or right deal at the right time, which isn't always easy. Deal origination is probably one of the hardest thing as a developer, if you want to, be successful at it. So land value. Sorry, should we talk on each point, or do you want to?
Yeah. Let's talk each point and dive a little bit more. So, people sort of land value. What do you mean? How is that risky? And you're talking about the buying part.
Yeah, the acquisition.
And how do you? Yeah, the acquisition, and how do you? What are the risks there?
So, firstly, say if you acquired a piece of land recently, and this no doubt is happening to a lot of the members at the moment. It's happened to me recently, to be honest, where I've acquired a site, say 5 months ago now. In 3 months, I was about to settle on the site, but the site was no longer, to the bank's discretion, no longer the value of what I actually acquired the site for. So, for example, and this is hypothetical, if I purchase a site for 600,000, and I can go up to 80%, I would need 20%, 120,000. However, if the bank now values that site at 500,000, that's a whole another 100K I'll need on top just to acquire the site, which cash flow is crucial in these developments, and if you're starting off like that, it can be very, very difficult. Or if you acquire a site now and in 12 months' time it goes down, it can be very challenging. So you just got to make sure that a site you identify, and to mitigate it, the site you identify, make sure you can make highest and best use out of it, and make sure you've got the right consultants to mitigate it further, to make sure you've got the right consultants providing you the information you require to ensure that, yes, it's worth the risk of going down the path of acquiring the site and, going to council with the proposed plans and hopefully being successful at obtaining the permits.
Yeah, and so this sort of stresses the need to ensure that you do sufficient due diligence as to what's possible. And also, I guess, in terms of your feasibility, ensuring that it's not too tight.
Correct. That you're not being too optimistic on the sellout or the gross realization value of the property. So what we are going to build and what it's all worth at the end. We need to make sure that there's enough fat in that project to, or a big enough contingency in the project to make sure that it's worth doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you've got land as that risk. So that's even just at the very starting point. We haven't even started developing it or building
Correct.
it.
We haven't even. touched any dirt. No.
But we've talked about this quite a bit in terms of the other episodes of the Business of Property, where it is around that due diligence and that feasibility and making sure that we've done all our research to ensure that the end values and the end prices are not going to be overinflated. You know, it used to be that you put a number in a feasibility and you talk about, you know, what it might be 3 or 5% by the time you finish. Like, scrap that, just put it in as it is now, or potentially if it drops as well, because you need to have a little bit of contingency up and down, right? Obviously down. So does it still work? Does it still work? Are those numbers still at least 20% plus, and not have them at 15% and hope for the best?
That's right. You're spot on.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So yeah, land value definitely up the top for me, or finding the right site to make sure it's feasible and equitable and worth it.
Absolutely. Number 2, tops.
Number 2, I'd go with obviously going through council and everything and plans and permits is risky, but I'm going to associate that with the land acquisition and the planning phase.
Yeah.
You know, make sure you're engaging the right town planners, the right people to give you the information you need to make an informed decision on whether it's worth going down that path to fight for that development. You know, do you need to push the boundaries a little bit to get it approved? So definitely risky. Make sure you've got the right consultants on board. So I'm putting that under land value, and then moving on to builder engagement and the builder you engage to develop the site. There's so many risks associated with engaging and going into partnership, because that's what you're doing. Yes, you're a developer, you might be the owner, but you're actually going into partnership with this person, and you're going in for a 2-year minimum, or say, you know, depending on the site, but say 2-year minimum partnership, and you're going to see each other at your worst and best times, and you've got to make sure you know each other well enough to get through those tough times. Crucial builder engagement.
And what are the key things in terms of that builder engagement? It's not just around, I think the builder's a good person. What are the things that you need to do in terms of your builder due diligence, particularly when we're seeing a lot of builders going under? What can developers do to at least check off and get some assurance that they've engaged the right building company?
That's right. So I'll just talk about what we do at Lion Property Group. We'll bring a builder in at the inception stage. So we actually bring a builder in at the planning phase, engage them early enough, and that will help us along the way. And we'll have meetings with the builder and the architects to get the highest and best use out of that site from a practical and design sense, which helps us a lot. Not everyone can do that because they don't have those forged relationships, but it's definitely something we do, which provides, you know, an opportunity for value management and stuff like that to make sure that the site's feasible and equitable. In terms of, you know, selecting the right builder for everyday people, it's important just to, you know, talk to the builder, look at other sites they're doing, talk to the other developers that they're doing the projects for. If you can talk to subcontractors they use, do them subcontractors get paid? Is there cash flow? There's a lot of DD you can do on a builder, and it's definitely worth doing it. Developing, it's a fickle game. You want to make sure that you're in bed with the right builder and you've done the right checks and done your DD, because at the end of the day, you're paying a lot of money for the building and the works, and you want to make sure that you're going to get the result or the quality that you've, you know, paid for.
In terms of looking into cash flow and speaking to subcontractors, how do you go about asking for that? Because a lot of people sort of go, "Oh, that's sort of really is that a tricky conversation to have, or is that something that builders should just go, yep, here you go, look at all my."
I feel like at the tender stage, a builder wouldn't have any issues. Some of them might use the same subcontractors anyway, but I feel like, you know, if they're a quality builder, they're going to share at least 2 to 3 subcontractors, a painter or a sparky that they will potentially use for the site, and discuss the price. I feel like if it means enough to them, then they'll have no issues or qualms in providing that information. But just being directly upfront with them and saying, how are you guys going at the moment? It's tough out there, and have that conversation. Don't, have that tough conversation first, and don't tippy-toe around it. Just say, hey, listen, I'm putting a lot on the line here. I know you potentially are too. Or ask them if they have any ideas on how you can improve the site or make it work for both of you. And they will, for sure.
Yeah. Because they want, first they want the job and want to be able to complete it as well. And then speaking to the builders around, their cash flow or whichever, and if you had to request for financials or financial statements or whichever, what would you specifically be looking for?
You want to make sure that, insurance is a big one. The builder you need to make sure that the builder hasn't taken on so much work that they're not insured for your actual work. So it's very important to find out off the builder what they're insured for. I think most, renos or smaller developments, a builder will be insured for around the $20 million mark, but bigger developers, they need to be insured for a lot more. So make sure they're insured to take on the work, which is very important. In terms of cash flow, you need to make sure they've got funds available to provide to pay the subcontractors. It's happened to us before where a builder has gone under. We started seeing the signs, probably late now, because we had subcontractors stealing materials off site and literally equipment off site, and we'd go up to him and say, what's going on? Well, he hasn't paid me. What's going on? So it's crucial for a builder to be in a position that he hasn't exposed himself to too many jobs where he's relying on too many big payments to come in and to pay the subbies. That will help when you do ask to speak to a few subcontractors or a few companies that builder engages, and ask, are you guys getting paid, regularly? And if they're not, then there's an issue. You can highlight that pretty quickly.
Yeah, and particularly now, again, guys, when you are going into build contracts and so on, it's not a bad idea to be having these conversations. Another good point is to go around to some of the sites that the builders are building and check out the activity that's on site, making sure 100%. There are trades there, have a bit of a chat to them as well if you're allowed to. Just really seeing that there's activity as well.
If a builder wants your work, which they should, generally, they'll take you around and show you some finishes on different sites they've done, different projects they've done. And you'll see people on site and just say, hey, how you going? You'll get a general vibe off them straight away.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the next part was, you mentioned getting the builder early on in terms of the planning. And does that mean that you guys specifically aren't going through a tender process?
So you can actually engage builders at this stage, and they might charge you a fee, they might not, but it doesn't guarantee them the job. What it does do, though, it provides their experience and expertise at a stage in the development to ensure that you can best utilize everyone's skill set to achieve the best outcome for that project. Whether it's a change in material, whether it's a less engineered basement compared to an over-engineered basement, a lot of factors are at play that can be highlighted at that planning stage, where you can save a significant amount of money. But in short, it doesn't guarantee the builder, and I'd still go to a tender process for sure. But at that stage, they've got their foot in the door, because they've got a pretty good idea on where they need to be at to make it achievable for everyone. So it puts them in a good position, and it puts the developer and the consultants and architects in a good position. At Lion Property Group, we use a company called Bailey Ward, and they are a very renowned architect in Melbourne and up in Queensland, Brisbane, Gold Coast. They don't they want to have almost a say in who we choose to build our projects as well, because it's important that they can have what they're designing translated into a beautiful structure, and they want to make sure that it's done to a T. So having all them discussions collectively and having them all know each other, or ask your architect who they recommend. It's probably a good way to go about it too, because they've delivered projects for them on their behalf. So I think that would help a lot.
And you also mentioned value management. Can you explain a bit about what that means?
Yeah, for sure. So value management is engaging the architect and the builder, and we'll have several meetings and go through the plans with a fine-tooth comb collectively to work out where we can save money on the project without impacting the integrity of the design or the structure. For example, if a massive I-30 beam, you can change the size of it and still get the same result. A building material, a different color brick or a different type of brick, you can change that out for another brick and get this same design aesthetic. Making a pool depth less, you can save a lot of money by not having such a deep pool. A basement, is it a wet basement, or is there alternatives around that to help save you money? And as I mentioned, it's important. None of this affects the integrity of the design or the build. It doesn't change the aesthetic or the quality in the design. But there is definitely ways you can, save money. And by saving money, it's value managing.
Yeah. So being able to say, this is what we need to work towards. Hello, my assistant for tonight. I think it's bedtime. But being able to have that builder involved almost, and having, excuse me.
No, you know where it is. You hit it.
I've hit his iPad, so he's hunting for the iPad. So going back, it's saying, all right, builder, this is what we're working towards. Basically having all their cards laid out to be able to say, if you want to be able to be part of this project, well, we need to be able to work with you. And it's a much more, as opposed to, it's almost like a blind auction otherwise.
Correct. And do you want to get to a stage where you've got the design, you're holding your cards up here, not giving them anything, and you want to get the best price off all these people, and you're hiding everything from them? I think collaboration's key. It's a big thing and big value of us at Lime Property Group. From the investors through to our consultants, collaboration is crucial going forward. A lot of people might try to do developments themselves. If you've got an opportunity to involve the right people and you set out the right structures, collaborate. It's far better. You can achieve a lot more. You can expand a lot more too. So I think, definitely try to be open, and you'll find the builder who's, being a bit dodgy or whatever, they'll disappear straight away if you're open and honest, and you can, and they'll show you their other sites and everything we've just spoke about. I think there's really good builders out there.
Excellent. So engage your builder from the early stages, and that's
If
another
possible.
part of managing your risk in terms of cost and all that other avoiding variations as much as possible, even from the very beginning.
Correct.
So number 4.
Number 4. So we've got these ones are probably more just the economy and what's happening. So in managing the rising material costs, it's a very hot topic at the moment. At number 4, I've got material costs, because if you haven't got the land at a good price, if you haven't engaged the right builder, and then all these material costs are then added on top, and the builder can't have the cash flow to provide the material, what do? Do you help the builder? You don't help the builder? It all links together. And I think the inflation, which everyone's seeing right now, it's a very hot topic at the moment. So inflation of materials is a big one.
So materials for at least the last year and a bit, materials costs delays, shortage of labor,
All that, correct. Yeah.
all the fun things that have happened all at once, COVID and everything. How have you guys managed those in your projects?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's only now that you can look back and realize how you have managed it, because in us as a developer, this has been ongoing, or the shortage of materials, delays of materials hasn't happened the last 6 months like a lot of the media is talking about now. We saw this 18 months ago. So the way we dealt with that and the way it's being dealt with, it's the way everyone's kind of dealing with it at the moment, which probably creates the delays and shortages, which is pre-purchasing the material. For example, the builder usually might, put down 10%, purchase a material or a deposit, get the material and chip away at it. Now we've kind of worked through a stage, which is kind of to go back to how it was, but we're still at this point where you need to buy all the steel for your 24 townhomes at once, or you need to buy all your windows at once, and you need to have everything ready to go. That's where the lenders have also been very helpful. So it trickles down. So the lender, they've changed how they lend money now through progress claims. But if there's an invoice there to get that project off the ground, you can go to your lender and say, hey, we need to pay for all this now to secure the equipment or whatever we need for the site. So prepaying, what that has caused though is the delays in materials. So certain developers and bigger developers might have actually got the product they need. However, that trickling down to, the person who's not paying up front, who only requires a little amount, who doesn't have 18 projects simultaneously going, it can definitely trickle down and affect the mum and dad developers or people not developing on a bigger scale, because they're not getting that access, which is not their fault at all. It's just, it makes it a lot harder to get access like that to those suppliers. Does a supplier want to give someone, one house or 3 townhouses, or are they going to give a developer who's got 20 sites, 40 houses and 2 luxury homes? And, getting the lender in. So, what's happened there though is it's created a kink in the supply chain, and I can relate it directly to the toilet paper theory, where there was no shortage of toilet paper, but everyone bought toilet paper at once. Everyone stockpiled toilet paper. By doing that, we created our own supply shortage. Whereas if people kind of didn't go down that path, perhaps we wouldn't have seen so many kinks in the supply chain. But we don't know. In terms of Line Property Group and how we manage it, that's how we did it. We were able to purchase, or we knew what was coming up. So we knew the dishwasher, we knew the toilets, and we were just buying as much as we could at that time, and storing it and putting it aside, and baths, everything you can think of because we've seen it happening and we had to anticipate that rush, and that's how we managed it at that time. Yeah, it's definitely eased off a bit now. 100% it's eased off so much now.
And you mentioned as well the swap from timber to steel in your projects.
Yeah.
How was that managed, and the logistics around that? Because that's happened to a lot of people in the group as well. They've had to go, oh my goodness, can't get any timber, won't be any timber for months. We've got to find a solution.
Yeah, so much so one of our builders actually bought a fabrication machine and started fabricating the steel for the projects. We definitely on multiple sites went from, we were going to do in timber, then to steel, then back to timber, back to steel. What you have to account for that when you're doing that is the foundations on them sites have to be different, or certain integrities depending what framing material you're going to use. So, it was a bit of a stuff around where you've got to get the engineer back in to do the foundation, or the engineering for the foundations again, because you're changing from timber to steel. It needs to be different integrity and stuff like that. But so it was a headache, but it needed to be a quick shift that happened on a lot of our sites where we went from timber to steel, stuck with steel, And not only did it save us on the price of the escalation in timber, but it actually worked out better for the bottom line of the whole project, which is fortunate. And before then, we really didn't have many projects that were built out of steel, to be honest. It was, majority of it was timber.
And was that just because it's just the way, just the product, the material you used for the
it's what the builder, it's what the builder wanted to use. He was happy to use it, and that's what we did for a long time. Correct.
Yeah.
I know. There's a lot of steel out there in terms of prefabbed homes, and a lot of the volume builders smack some steel frames up pretty quickly. But there's some sites with combination of both now, and it's amazing how you can adapt and maneuver where you need to be at certain periods in time to make something work and keep that integrity and design aesthetic in place.
And how quickly were you able to make that shift? Because like I said, you need to go back to engineering and all of that. Like in terms of the overall project, you looked at it and you went, oh my goodness, it's going to take, was it weeks? Was it months? To be able to weigh out whether it was worth going through that process or not?
It's a good question. It was at least a 3-month process. At this stage, this is probably a good 12 to 18 months ago. At that stage, when this was happening to us, or when we started seeing it, builders started quoting your projects out of timber, and another builder would quote it out of steel. So you'd actually see the difference in the prices of both. One builder wanted to do timber, and then we'd suggest, what if we do steel? And then they provide another quote. The longer it took, the more price escalation we were seeing. So you had to be pretty quick to lock it down, because they might have tendered the price 4 weeks ago, but 2 weeks later it went up, bang, even more. So and then we're back to, that's what I'm meant by steel, timber. It was a bit of a juggle at one stage, but it was at least 3 months. By the time you committed, we almost had to have all the steel, the deposits and all the steel paid for to know and secure it. And then decide, okay, we're going with that. We need to re-engineer the drawings quickly to make them work for steel, and then hit the ground running when it came to, putting it together, the construction.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, the point here is being able to go, all right, we got to go into solution finding mode. Timber, can't get timber for months. Prices have gone up. What's our next best? And in saying that, I mean, I guess the steel and timber prices have sort of almost evened out.
For steel is probably more expensive now. I don't even know, but it's crazy.
Have you guys gone back to timber since then?
I think we'll be looking at timber very soon. In terms of where our projects are at, we aren't looking at timber, but we are still with steel, but we are seeing a shift in supply catching up now for sure. And that's what it is. It's just catching up. The supply's there, the pine trees are there. It's just being able to get it out to everyone in that period of time.
Absolutely. And finally, in terms of the top areas of risk that you see that developers need to consider.
So are we at 3 or 4? 4 or 5, I mean. So I've got interest rates, which is obviously massive. Have we covered interest rates, or is that what we're going to?
We touched on interest rates very briefly at the very start in terms of land acquisition.
That's right.
And how it would impact the end product, because you've got consumers sort of buying.
With materials delays and inflation, I suppose interest rates are a big part of that, and that's what these are more economic risk. Interest rates can, it's probably the most hottest topic, and I've saved it for last, but you've got to be mindful of what's happening in the market. Interest rates might affect someone purchasing a home, and that person paying off that home for 30 years. In terms of property development, if you're buying the house and you're flipping it, you can make it work still. If you're operating in the same markets, or you're allowing it for your, these hikes now, which everyone should be in their feasibilities. If you set the interest rates higher and have a bigger contingency for it, you should be okay. Interest rates in terms of where we were at with private lending, which is we mainly utilize private lending. You generally have a fixed, capitalized interest, so you're 9s to 12%, and that's it for the total life cycle of the project. So interest rates for us personally, or Line Property Group or developers, aren't massive. Where it can hurt a project is the sales and what product you're bringing to market. For example, are you bringing a $750,000 property to market, multiple, say 6 to 10, and who's purchasing them, or investors purchasing them that maybe don't look at interest rates that much, don't require too much capital?
Yeah.
Or is it a first home buyer who's borrowing at 90% LVR? And are they buying off the plan? If they're buying off the plan and they've got to wait 12 to 18 months, and when they first acquired the site, they might have paid 750, and then it's gone up. The values have gone up. They haven't so much so dropped significantly yet. Certain areas have definitely. The values 12 months ago went up to now, and you're stuck paying, and the bank value's like lower. So you're stuck paying a lot more money for that site to get in, and it can be very hard if you're, 90% leveraged. It can be tough.
That's a really good point you're making in terms of who in the market does generally get impacted by interest rate rises, and it will be those who, say, your first home buyers, and like the luxury home market doesn't particularly tend to really be rattled too much, it doesn't seem.
Well, you wouldn't want to be in the luxury home market and targeting the wealthier people. Are they relying on the banks in your Toorak's in Melbourne? Are they relying on your 5% differences in money? Or I don't think they're that as leveraged, or them suburbs aren't as leveraged as other suburbs. It can be quite difficult, but I feel like it can be a lot harder for first home buyers who've gone fully leveraged at 90%. The smallest of changes can really impact their savings, their spendings, and how they make payments. And then they're the ones that are stuck selling the house at a lower rate because they couldn't pay the repayments. Hopefully not, though. We've experienced a lot of growth. I think everyone will be okay. The latest interest rate hike was at 2.5%. I don't like having an opinion on it, but I feel like it was required to go up because interest rates are at the lowest time they've ever been. Were people able to get loans in that time during COVID? I don't think much money was given out in that COVID time because no one was working. So did they even lend much money out of that very, very low percent? I don't know. What was the interest rate just before that? I think it was at this level we're at now. A lot of the fear around interest rates, I think it's healthy if they do go up. It'd be good to see them at 5 to 6%, not the cash rate, that's interest rates. And I think that's a bit more feasible for everyone, and a bit more, I suppose, healthier for the economy. And a healthy economy will be okay.
Absolutely. What does this mean for the developer in terms of mitigating that? If you are targeting that first home buyer market and that's where your product is, and it's you're starting to see it going, people are not being able to settle. I mean, have you guys been through that sort of scenario before, or something similar where you go, this is what we've been able to do to move things forward?
To be honest, at the moment, the projects that are coming up for sale have already seen so much growth in the last 24 months. For example, the 600K property is now $800,000. If we settle for $700,000, the money's still in the project. It's been a strange time where we have seen so much growth. Everybody's talking about 5% crashes and property crashes and dropping 5%. We've witnessed 20 to 40% growth over the last 18 to 24 months. So it does need to equal out a little bit. How far out it does, I'm not sure. It comes back to the suburbs you're developing in. I feel like there's a lot of micro markets within property that can definitely be impacted more than others. But I feel like, in short, I haven't seen it impact us that much. At the end of the day, the individual needs to have their savings. We were getting potentially money for nothing at a short period of time. We realized that it's not sustainable. Let's make it achievable. And I feel like people will start saving, putting more away, and making it work as they did prior to COVID. So
yeah. So I guess that sort of follows on to my sort of almost like final questions to wrap things up. There's a lot of talk about doom and gloom, and we're going to see our next sort of recession. How are you guys? Here's my little guest again.
Yes.
Still looking for something. How are you guys doing things? Oh, are you guys doing anything different in terms of your projects going forward?
Yeah, so COVID probably woke the eyes up to a lot of things, and at one stage it did separate people a lot more and push them away in terms of isolating in our homes. But what it did was, with technology, it brought people a lot closer. We started working a lot closer with our consultants and valuing those relationships a lot more. Those relationships, I suppose, maybe forged or got stronger during tough times through COVID. So we're able to help each other here and there and made the relationship stronger. So it brought us closer to our consultants, such as with our builders, as I was discussing earlier in the program. Working close with the builders is very integral to the development. And a team that we work with, so they've been through, it streamlines the process a lot more. Just there's a lot more systematic. We're on DocuSign all the time now. We're inking contracts flat out prior to COVID. Just small things like that, and it's helped a lot in terms of how we manage staff, how we manage consultants, how we manage developments. You don't expect things to happen all at once, or get your knickers in a knot because it's not happening all at once. You can say, okay, and be probably a bit more diplomatic about scenarios and different challenges arising. I feel like in terms of, you mentioned the recession and doom and gloom and people preparing for that, there's the economic definition of recession, or what is it, two cycles down or 2 quarters down and we're in a recession. How does that affect the property market? I feel like in Australia, now is a good time for people to take advantage of opportunities. We're 200 years young. We have a philosophy at our work that we can control our attitudes. We can control how we visualize stuff, how we see things. And I feel like we choose to embrace positivity. It's huge. And if you have that and your values are strong, you've got good relationships with your consultants, you'll be able to get through what's ahead, whether that is a crash or what's your definition of a crash? Like, I don't even know, like, is an asteroid going to come down and smash one of our developments? Because to me, that's probably a crash for that site. But in terms of a market crash, or it's, goes down, it's going to come back up. If you just got to ride out the tough times. And I feel like the toughest times through COVID, mentally, psychology, maybe not through money, but mentally and psychologically, I feel like we were almost trained to get through the next tough time, which looks like it's going to be a more financial battle. But at the end of the day, the government gave out so much money, it created and inflated the market. Interest money was cheap. It needs to get back up. We've got to give that money back some way or another. It might have been good at the time, but it wasn't sustainable. And now we need to work back towards that. And that's what the government, the RBA, is doing now. They're raising interest rates to deal with the inflation and hopefully get us back on the right track.
Yeah, we've got someone here mentioning, it's commenting, recessions provide the best opportunities. Be greedy when others are fearful.
Warren Buffett, what a man.
Good old Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
And we've been through so many cycles. It's another part of the property cycle, and we've seen when we look at the long-term property cycle, right? It's always increased. We've had dips and all of that, but then be able to go, okay, what can we learn from, we had the GFC, we had, all these other really impactful sort of dips in the market, we've been able to recover. And it just means that, the reason why we're talking about risk and managing that is that that's what development's about. the whole time it's
Yeah.
around finding solutions. It's all around managing all the different sorts of risks. Being
Correct.
mindful about the types of projects that you are entering into. If you sort of feel that it's a market where, am I catering to first home buyers? Are they actually the market that can ride out this cycle well? Great. If you don't feel they are, then target a different market where you feel are going to be less
Or a different state, or a different
Exactly.
something. Perth
Exactly.
suffered. Look at Perth. Perth's still struggling from the mining boom. Did Melbourne, Sydney see that? I don't think so. Up in Darwin's booming at the moment. Tasmania's going crazy. Just broaden your horizons, maybe. I think COVID also did that for us. It helped us look outside the box a little bit more. There's opportunities in a booming market. There's opportunities in a recession. There's opportunities everywhere. You've just got to be able to find them. And I think it's just having a broad view of all of it and sitting back, having a look, read the play, and then have a crack. But that gentleman or whoever left that comment is 100% right. Be fearful when everyone's greedy. Be greedy when everyone's fearful, because that's when you'll get the most growth and where you can catch up time.
Absolutely.
Sure.
That's a great way to wrap things up. Brenton, it's been fantastic. For those of you who would like to reach out to Brenton, have a chat around what they're doing in Line Property Group, we've got his email out here somewhere. It'll flash across the screen pretty soon. My magic's not quite working as quickly as I'd like. All right, it will come up.
Oh, good.
It's great.
Okay.
But thank you. I mean, I think we've really highlighted some really valuable information here, a lot for us to think about in terms of not just our current projects, but the projects that are coming up. Lionproperty.group is the website.
Yeah.
And that will come on when it does. And in terms of if anyone wants to reach out to you, you're obviously on Facebook, but your email, Brenton.s, is that right?
At Lion Property.
At Lion
Yep.
Property.
.group. So it's all .group, no .com, but you'll look us up. You'll find us.
On the screen.
Again, just thanks for having me on the show, Cheryl. Really hope
fantastic.
the members in this group, I love the group, to be honest. I love commenting on people's success stories and people putting progress photos up. Keep up the good work, guys. And we are all in it together. So it's good. And if you can collaborate, definitely collaborate.
Absolutely. There's so much to learn from each other. And this is the whole point of this group, was to really empower, support, and, we all share and grow together.
Correct.
Australia's not that big and our community is not that huge, but we all, in some way or form, it can impact each other. So I really appreciate all your share. You've got a podcast as well. So if people want to watch your videos, where do they go to?
Not so much a podcast, but I do videos on YouTube channels and just talk about risk and upcoming risk and just stuff that might add value to people at different times, instead of just talking about what we do and what we have to offer and our opportunities. We like to share what's happening in the market. So LinkedIn's probably the best one for me. Just look up my name on LinkedIn and I'll share that content on LinkedIn. But shoot through an email if you want to have a chat, a one-on-one. More than happy to organize that too. And exactly what you said. We're all here in it together. So I think we're a very young country and there's a lot of growth to happen. It's very exciting.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I hear that hopefully your bubba's gone to sleep. I don't hear
Yes. Hopefully both of them are.
That's right. Fingers crossed. Oh, take care very much. Thanks very much again for joining us. Everyone that's come on board, make sure you visit and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Business of Property, where you can find all our past episodes and the replay of this particular session. If you found value, make sure you hit the like button and the little thumbs up. And so we'll see you again next time. Keep well. Take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.